start with the end and ask you to sum up your first 12 months in charge at United. Review yourself.
Right. Well, I think in a funny sort of way, it's gone as we anticipated it would. We didn't think the first year was going to be easy because we had difficult things to do. But I think, the club is bigger than, until you actually arrive in the club, it's bigger than you think, And the scrutiny is bigger than you anticipate because you get your school report at the end of every day instead of at the end of every term. I used to get a clip around here once every term by my mother, but now I get a clip around the ear every day by the press. So those things are sort of slightly, I suppose, unanticipated or underestimated. But I think broadly where we are, which I know is a difficult place, and people are not very happy about it at the moment, which is why I'm quite unpopular. It is where I didn't expect in a year of change that we'd be winning the Premier League.
We'll get back to Sir Jim and Gary in just a quick second, but remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. And as ever, if there's something bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, please express those thoughts in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments and he looks forward to seeing or reading what is on your mind. Anyway, in this clip, this is a special set of circumstances. Just dropped right now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is being interviewed by Gary Neville. And in this clip from the entire interview, Sir Jim is going to be summing up the first 12 months in charge of Manchester United. He's going to be talking about sacking Ten Hag, and he's also going to be talking about how he thinks Ruben Amorim has done so far. And stick around for after the clip because the Big D is going to be giving his thoughts on what Sir Jim had to say. Here he is.
Honestly.
Are you finding it hard, the scrutiny, the attention, the criticism?
Well, I used to enjoy picking a newspaper up in the morning, having a cup of coffee and a croissant, which it's not quite so enjoyable anymore. But I think the way, we've all got our sensitivities, and it isn't pleasant to read some of the press coverage. But the way I get through it is that I believe what we're doing is the right thing, and I believe what we're doing has to be done to get United back to where United should be, which are the winning, silverware and winning trophies and things like that. And we have to go through this. If you don't like where United have been for the last 12 seasons since Sir Alex retired, then I think, ergo, you have to accept there has to be a period of change, otherwise it's just going to continue. And change is always uncomfortable and unpleasant at times, and that's sort of where we are at the moment, unfortunately.
Do you understand why the fans are angry? Obviously, yesterday they protested at the Arsenal match. Do you understand where it comes from? Yeah,
I think. Yeah, well, I'm a fan as well. Remember, so fans are not going to be happy languishing down at the bottom in the bottom half of the table. And yeah, I get that, and I sympathise, but I didn't think this year was going to be a walk in the park. It was always going to be difficult. And if you look at the squad that Ruben's got available, he's only got half a squad, honestly.
You just said that you're a fan. As a fan, not as an owner, when you go and watch the games, and you have been watching in the last 6 or 7 months, what do you make of the performances?
Well, I've seen the performances under two, so I don't know whether you're asking me about the previous...
Well, under Eric and under Ruben now.
Yeah, well, obviously under Eric it was erratic, I think is the best word I'd use. There was some great when we obviously went in the FA Cup against Man City, they all turned up and they played like they were in a cup final, and then at other times, Crystal Palace or whatever, they didn't show up. Under Ruben, what we've seen, I think, is it was difficult at the beginning, and I sort of get that. But then I think we've seen progress, and I think some of the players that we bought in the summer, you've seen them settle. It's quite tough, isn't it? You spent your life playing there. It's not an easy league to play in, and there's a lot of scrutiny, and it's a tough... look how Xerxes got knocked about, yesterday in the first half. He really got knocked about, didn't he? He wouldn't be used to that playing in the Italian league, so it takes time for players to settle. But I think you know, if you look at, I mean, Ruben yesterday against Arsenal, he only had half a squad. I mean, how many players would most people recognise on the bench yesterday? I mean, it was hardly a name that you'd recognise. I mean, the guy that we brought on, Heaven, he was only 18. We only bought him 3 weeks ago from Arsenal, you know. And then we had Obi on there, who's only 16, I think, and he's played once for United. I mean, there was only half. I mean, I think if you look at the top 8 most expensive players that we've got in terms of salary, 4 of them are not available to Ruben. Now, if you did that with Liverpool or Manchester City, that's the cream of your half the cream of your team has gone, you know. So I think I've seen progress.
Where have you seen that progress?
We saw a bit of a glimpse of the future, I thought. On
Yesterday?
Sunday. I thought we saw a glimpse of the future, yeah. I do. Yeah.
What, in the second half, you mean?
In the second half, yeah. I thought, you know, they were quite cohesive. You could see a bit of the game plan. And the players played their hearts out for Manchester United. They really did. And you could see it, couldn't you? You could see that Delict tattle. You could see the tattle that Heaven made. I mean, it really meant something to them.
So you think the recruitment from last summer will come good?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
And how do you assess...
But bear in mind, recruitment last summer, we didn't have the luxury of time to prepare for last summer, did we? Jason had been there 3 weeks. Omar had been there 3 days. We had the problem with the coach. Is it a yes or a no? So we involving the coach and not involving the coach.
Did you involve the coach?
Sorry?
Did you involve the coach?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So Eric signed a lot of those players last summer?
No, he didn't, but he was involved in the discussions and he influenced... I mean, you know, at the end of the day, a decision on a new player or a purchase isn't a decision of one person normally, is it? You know, it's a group of people who influence that decision one way or another. So yeah, he did have a voice, which is why there were 1 or 2 Dutch players.
Would you have sacked Eric if you'd have found another manager after the FA Cup final success? Because you were looking around Europe and scouring for a new manager. It was too early for us to make a big decision in reality, and we hadn't been together as a team for very long, you know. If you look at Omar, Jason, myself, Dave, we hadn't been together for very long. It was just a matter of, you know, weeks, and it's quite a big decision, isn't it? And also, it's quite difficult to, you know, it was quite difficult to extract in that season when we arrived, Eric's performance from the structure around him. Because obviously the structure around him now is completely different. Yeah. So if I look today, there's a really strong relationship and a really strong support culture for Ruben with Jason. So Jason and Ruben talk to each other 2 or 3 times a day. Omar speaks to Ruben every day. Every time I go to the match, I speak to Ruben. So, you know, there's a support structure there, and he's got his coaches and the physios and the doctor and everything else. But it was quite difficult to see whether, you know, what environment Eric was operating in. Was it, in other words, was the erratic performance a function of Eric, or was it a function of the organisation? And we couldn't really get to the bottom of answering that question with sort of certainty, I suppose. So we gave Eric the benefit of the doubt. And you regret that, or do you feel...
Yeah, it was the wrong decision. We made the wrong decision. It was an error. So, yeah, I suppose in that sense I regret it. I think there was some extenuating or mitigating circumstances in having made that decision. But at the end of the day, it was the wrong decision. So, hands up, you know, mea culpa on that one. Yeah.
How do you assess Ruben's first 4 or 5 months? It's also been tough in terms of results and performances. But how do you assess... I mean, he's very honest.
Yeah, he is honest. And I like that about... I think Ruben has done an excellent job. I really like Ruben. And I think in the circumstances in which he arrived mid-season. Yeah. He didn't have time to train his players in the way in which he wants to play. He inherited a squad which he's had no influence on, and the squad isn't necessarily designed for the way in which he plays football. And English isn't his natural language, and he's never played in the Premier League before, and he's managing the biggest club in the world, and it's a tough place. I mean, Manchester United is a tough place.
Yeah. And he's young.
You know, there's a big one. And he's a young guy, yeah. So I think, you know, if you take all of that into consideration, I think he's done a remarkably good job.
What parts are you referring to there when you say good job? Because obviously the results have been poor. What are you referring to? Just generally the way in which he carries himself, or?
Yeah, I think the way, and I think what he's got out of the
players that he's got available, I think he's done well with.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
I mean,
if I look at the salary bill of the squad that's available to him, that salary bill is not the salary bill of Manchester City or Liverpool.
Do you mean because of the injuries? What do you mean? What are you referring to? If
you look at the salary bill of the players that are available to him that are not injured or not out on loan, because we've got Anthony out on loan, we've got Sancho out on loan, we've got Rashford out on loan, we've got Mason Mount hasn't really played in the last 2 seasons, we've got Luke Shaw hasn't played in the last 2 seasons. So if you modify our salary bill for the players that are not available to Ruben, then our salary bill ranks us about, mid-league, second half of the table. We're sort of level with, the likes of a Nottingham Forest or Everton, not a Manchester City or, So that salary bill, if you look at that salary bill, is probably about 130 million. And we're talking about Liverpool has got a salary bill of 200 and Manchester City got a salary bill of 300. So that's the squad that Ruben's playing with. So, he's not got the Liverpool squad, he's not got the Manchester City squad, he's got the Manchester United squad. I mean, how many players did you recognise on that bench on Saturday? They're all kids.
Yeah, do you support what he's done with Rashford, with Anthony, with Sancho, and obviously even with Garnacho, who's in and out of the team at the moment? He seems to be... Yeah. You support what he's doing with those players?
Correct, I do. Yeah, I think he's doing the right thing with the players. Yeah. He has to be in charge of the dressing room. I mean, you played in the dressing room where the boss was the boss, wasn't it, at the end of the day? And he's got a set of principles, and he wants the players to abide by his set of principles, which is that you have to be totally and utterly committed to winning the next football match. That's what he wants. So if you abide by those principles, you potentially have a seat in the dressing room.
Wow. Well, in this interview, it's quite interesting, and I was shocked that this has just dropped out of nowhere onto the Big D's lap. Wow. First thoughts on the interview are, Sir Jim looks uncomfortable. He looks uncomfortable. He seems anxious. He seems a bit jittery. It's like, he's not used to this kind of scrutiny, and that's the thing. The dreaded Manchester United microscope is on the club intensely. It doesn't matter if you're a player or a manager or an owner. They are bearing down on you. Anyway, he looks really anxious. He looks a bit irritable. He looks a bit... He won't be used to this because he won't get this kind of media attention managing Nice or owning Nice or... making petrochemicals or whatever else it is that he does, or with his cycles and bikes and all that stuff. But he does. He seems a bit jittery there. He does make some fair points, though, to be fair. And he holds his hand up by saying that keeping Erik Ten Hag in charge at the end of last season was a mistake, so that's fair enough. I don't necessarily disagree with anything that he said in the interview, despite his demeanour. Because, it's the first 12 months in charge of Manchester United. And that first 12 months, especially because there was a lot of things to fix, they are trying to fix as many things as they possibly can, as quickly as they can, whilst working with people that they are not used to working with. So, it's like on a football pitch. If you're in a well-drilled team that's used to playing with each other, they're going to get to know each other. They're going to know what all the little habits are and whatnot. The more they know each other, the more they're going to be able to work well together and win football matches. And it's the same in business. It's the same in management. It's the same in all that kind of stuff. So, especially... it's going to be even more intensified when there's a lot of pressure on, particularly when you own a club like Manchester United. So, Sir Jim just getting used to working with Omar Barada and Wilcox. What's his name? Used to play for Blackburn. Jason Wilcox. His name escaped me for a second there. And Ruben Amorim and they've got Christopher Vivell as well. So it's going to take time for them to get to know each other and whatnot. And it's going to take time for them to get to know the players as well. They're going to try and understand what they've got, what they need, and things like that. And And in terms of, as he said there, they feel as though they didn't really have much time in the transfer window last year, considering the players that they got in that time. I think they've done quite well. I mean, when you take a step back and just look at it from a business perspective, what they're doing is it's quite predictable, really. They're streamlining the business, and at the end of the day, Manchester United is not a religion. It's a business. It's a business entertainment product. And as such, it needs to make money and not cost as much as it makes. It needs to make a profit. And to be able to do that, you need to minimize expenditure and maximize expenditure. You need to minimize outgoings and maximize income. And only then can the club grow. So yeah, streamlining the team, streamlining, the admin department, the management department and all of that, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And, he was talking about the players that we bought in the summer. I think they've been good signings. And they're getting better and better and better. And he's right there with Xerxes. He's been knocked around a little bit and he's not going to be used to that. And remember, he's still a young lad. He's still learning his trade, so to speak. I mean, I think he's under 24. And he seems to be one of those slow burners, so to speak. But De Ligt's hit the ground running. He's brilliant. Ugarte is getting better and better, quicker and quicker. So they've done all right, and he's publicly backed Ruben Amorim there, which is good to see. And he's saying that he likes what he's been doing, and given the circumstances, he thinks he's done a really good job, and he kind of has. And he has got a point. We're missing a lot of our best players. And the point that he was making there, in terms of 8, well, he's got 4 out of 8 of United's highest earners not available to Ruben Amorim. And what he means by that is the best players in any given team are usually the highest paid players. It's simple football economics. It's not necessarily transfer fees that dictate the value of a player. It's their wages. So you might be able to, look at Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland signed for Manchester City for about 65 million, but straight away he was on about 400 grand a week. That's what dictates, or that's a reflection of the level of ability of any given footballer, roughly speaking, and it's usually more accurate than not. So, but that's something else that he's had to fix as well, because in United's unique instance, there's a lot of players there who they're not worth the money that they're getting paid. But Bruno Fernandes is. Mason Mount maybe could have been, but he's too injury prone. Martinez is not available. We all know what the situation with Sancho and Rashford. It's well documented. So I kind of feel sorry for Sir Jim a little bit. Well, no, I don't feel sorry for him. I find it very difficult to feel sorry for someone in that economic position, because he didn't have to buy Manchester United, but he wanted to buy Manchester United. He wanted the challenge of returning that club to glory. So I don't necessarily feel sorry for him, but I do understand his perspective and understand what he's trying to do, and I don't entirely necessarily disagree with it. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. I suppose it is hurting. But yeah, the Big D's just been made aware of some more instances. Big D's got a lot of videos that he's making tonight. This is the first. Going to be at my computer all night. There's more to come from Sir Jim. But yeah, I mean, you've got to make hard, tough decisions for the benefit of the team and the club in the long term. Alex Ferguson used to do that all the time. You've got to think medium to long term. Whenever he had a winning team, his focus was always on what the team was going to be like in 5 years. And what he meant by that was what players are coming up that he could buy, what players are coming through the youth system, and what players in the current team are close to the end, and what players are on the rise in the first team, ready to become a first team regular. And you can apply that to be honest, that's just basic business sense, really. You've got to be able to understand where you are and where you want to go and how you're going to get there and how you're going to maintain that. And he understands that there's been a lot of hard decisions that needed to be made for the long-term benefit of Manchester United. And don't forget, his reputation is on the line. His money is involved in this as well. So he's going to want to see a return in his investment as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see over the next 12 months. Be interesting to see. I think we're going to know in the next 12 months if the Jim Ratcliffe era is going to be a success or not. Because I've said before, it is a simple fix with Manchester United, but the simple decisions that need to be made are going to be hard for the people making them, if that makes sense. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you agree with Sir Jim? Do you agree with him sacking Eric Ten Hag? And do you agree with him backing Ruben Amorim? Thoughts in the comments as ever, and the Big D will see you in the next one.